May 31st, 2022 meeting of the Macon County Board of Elections. Welcome, all of you, and thank you for coming. My name is Kathy Tinsley. I'm the chair, and to my left and right are other members, Gary Dills, Jeff Gillette, and John Van Hook over here. We have one member who is on vacation, but she'll be joining us if we'll go into deliberation or anything. We're here because we received a formal protest of our election of the May 17th election on Friday morning. And before we go any further, let me just say, we are not used to sitting up here above you all. So this is uncomfortable for us, but our office is too small downstairs and the other courtrooms are being used. So please don't think we're on any kind of high and mighty pedestal up here. What we'd like to do first, this is taken very seriously when a formal protest is filed. And I also want to tell you that 2 different recordings are being made of this hearing, this procedure. So we're all reminded to talk loudly and clearly today. The first thing I'd like to do is to introduce myself to Mr. Bob Cook, and I apologize that I don't know you. Hi, Kathy Tinsley. And would you come on up and be sworn in or affirmed and present your concerns and protest about our election? If you would, Heather's going to do that for us.
Do you prefer to be sworn or affirmed?
Either way, I've answered to both.
Yes, sir. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give to the Macon County Board of Elections Board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm not used to just reading off my points, but I want to make sure I get them all, so I'm going to read everything that I've got here.
Okay.
And first of all, I want to thank you for having this hearing and addressing this issue. You are the guardians of one of the most prized rights that we as citizens have in our great country. We depend upon you for the absolute accuracy of the voting process. Mistakes can be made. After all, we are just human. I do want to begin by asking a few questions. The first one was I informed of the need to be at the first hearing before this?
Mr. Cook, I think this is the first hearing.
No, I was called before, and then there was a lot of accusations where I missed the first one, so we had to put everything off. Right, so I just want to make sure, I want to get this on record is why I'm asking.
Maybe our chair wants to speak to this, but my recollection is that we came to the point in the meeting where your protest came up. We looked at it, we discussed it, we did some preliminary evaluations of it, and determined that in order to process the protest according to the statutes of the state of North Carolina, we had to stop what we were doing right then and there and not discuss the protest any further, but hold this meeting and give you the chance so that we have not made any decisions or any consideration of your protest up until now. So you are starting with a clean slate.
Right.
Yeah, if I could, just
Yes.
to supplement what Mr. Gillette just said, I think maybe confusing the first hearing with the canvass meeting.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
Those
doing.
are 2 different.
Right.
So we started the canvass, the protest was
Right.
introduced, the protest stops the canvass.
Correct.
Until this is resolved.
At that time, I was called on the phone.
Just,
cell
I think
phone.
as a matter of,
Well, they asked me if I could come in, and did I come in pretty quickly?
Well,
You weren't here, but
as I recall,
Gary was.
Melanie, the last we heard,
calling before the
she
meeting.
tried to call before the meeting. Somehow that didn't
Well,
go
it's
through. And then
the
by
mountains and
time we were told.
cell
we were
phones are not very
about a
good.
minute out and we had finished our procedure.
We wanted to give you an opportunity to articulate what that
And I
protest
appreciate
was
that.
before we
Yes.
went any further.
And well, that's
No
in
fault
accordance.
on your own.
Right, and that's in
You-
accordance
you
with
were
North Carolina
notified,
statutes. So-
And you just couldn't get there. We got that.
Right.
That's why we're doing this today.
Well, I would have if I'd,
Of course you would have.
yeah. Anyway, if a vote for a particular office comes up shorter than the total ballots, isn't that an indication of an undervote?
Say that more slowly.
I'm sorry. If the total number of votes for a particular office come up less than the total number of ballots, that's an indication of an undervote.
Do you want to explain what undervote votes are?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Let's say we've got three candidates running for X, Y, and Z.
Right.
You're only gonna vote for one.
Correct.
I decide to only vote for two people.
Correct.
Okay, there's gonna be an undervote there.
Right.
Or I decide I'm not gonna vote at all in that
Right.
particular election, then that would show as an undervote.
Correct.
So it is the votes tallied
Correct.
against the votes cast.
Correct.
And it's not necessarily the ballots, because a lot of,
No.
some people will.
There's a lot of people that don't
put
vote
in
for,
a
like,
ballot and
judges.
not mark but one race.
Absolutely. And I get that.
Okay.
So like you can have 10 ballots, but only 8 votes.
That's correct.
And that would be,
That's correct.
an indication of undervote.
That's correct.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Is it reasonable to assume that a ballot is an indication that there is a person there to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you.
yeah.
But I just want to get it on record.
You can't vote without a person physically.
Physically bringing a ballot
into
in.
the machine, yeah.
And each ballot indicates there was one body that walked through the door, typically. This
Ballot, not
right.
each vote necessarily, but each ballot.
Yeah, and
yes.
I've never disputed that fact at all.
Yes.
So anyway, I filed this protest solely because of the appearance of the numbers of the ballots cast were way off. When it was brought to my attention that it appeared there were 1,339 ballots unaccounted for, I immediately contacted Assistant Director Gary Talent. I also have copies of my Facebook messages and my emails if anybody needs to see them. In my initial inquiry, I made it clear that I had hoped that there was a simple answer, and I asked the question, why would there be nearly 1,400 undervotes in the sheriff's race? The answer I got was the reason there was a great disparity between the ballot numbers and the sheriff's vote was because the voters voted twice for the county commissioners. Exactly. So I gave my reasons for why that was not possible and asked for clarification. I received another email from Mr. Talent the next day where I was accused of spreading misinformation. I respect Mr. Talent, and I trust his process very much. I've worked in the precincts for the last 6 or 7 years, and I trust believe it or not, I trust the M100 machine. I really do. All right. I had relayed that to him several times. When I was questioned throughout the campaign about the accuracy of the voting process and the potential for fraud, I assured them that I had complete faith in the system and the processes. However, the immediate reasons for the disparity was not plausible, at least not to me. Mr. Talent had finally told me he wasn't going to address anymore, which in his defense, he was retired. I don't blame him. And take it up with the state. So I did. In all fairness, he had retired and told me I could take it up with Ms. Thibault. However, by that time, the question started to spread. And that wasn't even on social media. Up until that time, I had not brought anything up on social media at that point. Within a day or so, I decided to try and ask the same questions to Ms. Thibault. I'm sorry, how do I pronounce your name? Thibault. Okay, I should remember that. Once again, I pointed out that there was probably a simple explanation. The response I received was that there was, and that I would have to wait to get it at the recount, which was well past the deadline to file this protest. I had hoped that Ms. Thibault was aware of the deadline listed in the general statute. I'm sure she is. With that explanation, it was then I decided to shine the light on this issue in the world of social media. I once again emailed Ms. Thibault and explained that I was only trying to get an explanation before the deadline to file a protest. It was then, and only then, that I began to get an explanation as to what really happened about the erroneous coding on that one block. As a citizen, how is it that I am to know the truth? At least now, I hope we will hear the explanation, and I see him sitting here, so I'm sure we will, and it'll be under oath and on record. Now and forevermore, the rumors and conspiracies can stop. You will have explained it on record, and we as citizens, not as a candidate, I didn't come here as a candidate, I came here as a citizen of this county, and we will have to be satisfied with that answer. Here is my recommendation for the future. If there is a problem, let us know. We are much more informed as to the electoral process than we ever were before. If you are challenged, don't accuse that citizen of spreading misinformation. If you had only explained what you did 2 days after the election when I asked, we wouldn't be sitting here now. If you were to...
Baby.
Oh, it was a baby.
It wasn't one of them.
Okay. Scream of pain, I thought. Anyway, if you were to advise the electorate that there was a problem with the ballot count, but not the vote count, it would have caused questions without a doubt. But ignoring it and correcting it without explanation 6 days later only serves to feed the concerns that we have. We as citizens have rights, and that's why I'm here. We have the right to question and challenge those in our government if we feel that they are not being transparent. Can we all agree that an explanation that it was double voting on the race, followed by accusations of spreading misinformation, then followed by an attempt to hold me off until after the deadline, that I and many other citizens who are afraid to sit here and talk with you now, can we at least agree that the optics didn't look good? And it was inevitable that questions would arise. Finally, now that the process is nearing completion, at least in this issue, we are being transparent. We will not have to listen to conspiracy theories for the next 4 years. We will not have to always question that the process is fair. Thank you for listening.
I think we've got some questions, maybe.
Sure.
And thank you, Mr. Cook, for bringing this up. Obviously, I can see from the number of people here that there were a number of people who share your concern, and you were the one who stepped forward to start this process, and so I thank you very much for doing that. When our voters have concerns, you're absolutely right, we need to address them, we need to address them timely. But let me make sure that I understand kind of the details of what you're asking here. Initially, you discovered, you said that there were 1,339 ballots that were cast, but the votes were not accounted for. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was 9,334 votes that were, ballots, I'm sorry, that, I keep using them interchangeably, please.
Right.
I understand the difference, okay?
That number's wrong.
Well, it was 9,844, I'm sorry. Yeah, 9,008, I used to have memory, so. Anyway, 9,844. There was 1,173 Democrats, so they couldn't vote for a sheriff. That left 83 or 8,400 that could. There was 1,339 that didn't. This is the biggest election we've had in our county in probably 20 years, where we've had more people turn out than we ever have. And to think that there was 1,339 people that decided they didn't, I can understand a judge, nobody knows who they are, or even some county commissioners or senators, but the sheriff, everybody knows who the sheriff is. So sometimes it happens, but not, and it was 49, I understand, undervotes, but there's not going to be 1,339 people. And that's the questions I had.
Okay. Part of the process we have here, after we've heard evidence from you and from other people, we need to look at the facts and make a determination. And so I'm just making sure that I understand what the facts
Sure.
are. So 1,339 is your claim as to votes that were,
That was the difference between who could have voted
Right.
on the initial reporting, the 9,844 ballots cast.
so that's the first part of your protest. The second part is that you got different responses or different explanations
Yes, sir.
for what this discrepancy was. You're concerned about that, and I totally get that. And so that needs to be addressed. Why were there different explanations? And the third thing, and I'm going to give you a chance to kind of, in a sentence, what would you like the result of this or the remedy of all of this to be?
I think that the citizens, because I can't tell you how many people have talked to me. There's a lot of people that are afraid to come here and talk. All right. I know it seems silly, but it's true.
No, I
And
get that.
it is. But I think if we just explain to the citizens what happened, all right? I mean, we have to take your word for it. I mean, like I said, you guys are the guardians of our best attribute for our country. I've been all over this world, and there are places they don't have the choice to vote for their officials to represent them. All right? So what I think we just need, and I've never been under any delusion that this would change my election results, nor anybody else's for that matter. But common sense dictates if there was 1,339 ballots missing, there's some votes attached to that somewhere.
And this will be explained in a moment.
Right.
First of all, there were not any
Right.
ballots missing at all.
Right.
The unofficial report. done
And
by-
that's what he's going to explain.
And the unofficial report done by the Unity computer miscounted it. It added in a number. And he'll explain the technology
Right.
behind that. And the director will also explain what we did that evening. Because I happened to be one of those confused people that night. And I was there, we were trying to figure it out as well. And we did not know until Mr. Nose actually told us.
I guess all I'm saying is that if we knew that there was a problem, except not the votes, but the ballot count, if we knew,
I will assure you that we looked, she can talk to this more directly,
Right.
but I'll tell you what, Okay, but I can assure you, we knew that the vote tally was correct.
Oh.
But we also knew that there's something screwy in that unit.
But when nobody tells anybody that,
We don't know what we could have told you, but.
well, no,
We'll explain.
but we could have said that there was a problem with the ballot count. The votes are correct, but the ballot count is wrong, and we're figuring out what that is. But the votes are correct.
I got
And so that at least is transparent enough that we as citizens can look at it and go, okay, well, we're pretty clear on you're saying that the ballots are, I mean, the votes are clear, or the votes are what they are, and that's not going to change. But the ballot count, that's what had a lot of people, myself, to be honest with you, I didn't even notice it.
The report of the ballot. count.
The report of the ballot. But see, that's what we see.
I know that.
You got to remember, on election night, we're all watching TV.
I get you.
And so that's what we see. So that's what we have to go by. We don't have your information. We don't have Ms. Thibault's information. We have our information that's put out by people like Bobby Coggins or any other media outlet, or Mia Overton. So we have to go by what we're told. And that's where we have a problem. If we're not told at least that there's a problem, then we're going to make up our own.
Well, if I could just sing the timeline a little bit here.
Yes,
for you,
sir.
It may make a little bit of, maybe a little more sense to you. At Canvas on Friday, the gentleman you're going to hear from here in a moment as to the technical issues, addressed a lot of this in front of the press and everyone that was there.
Yes.
That's where we wanted to get it out. That's also why we really courtesy called you. We wanted to try to get you down to see that. Because I think that may, operable word, have answered your problem. But again, thank you. We'll put it on the record here and get it in front of everyone.
I think this is actually the best way to do it. You get it on the
would
record,
agree.
and that way, if there's any questions, there's no he said, she said. It was all right here. It's not my interpretation of it. It's not his. It's not hers. It's what it is.
Yeah.
All right?
Anybody else have questions for Mr. Cook?
Just, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'd like Melanie Tebow, who's from our local office, to come and be affirmed or sworn in too, and just go through the chain of events that evening.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence, excuse me, do you solemnly swear that evidence that you shall give to the Macon County Board of Elections Board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Now, ma'am, just state who you are.
I'm Melanie Tebow. I'm the director of the Macon County Board of Elections.
Okay, and how long have you been the director?
Director, I'm going on 4 years, 5 years, 5 years. I've been with the Board of Elections since 2005.
Okay.
Tell us.
Election night, we, as normal, we had our meeting. We uploaded our cards. First ones we start with is our one-stops, our absentee by mail, our transfers for that day. We uploaded those cards, matched to the tapes. They were fine. Nothing was out of the ordinary. The first election night card came in, entered the card, a number popped up on my Unity. It was totally different from my tape. So I did not go any further. We sat there for a few minutes, we talked and tried to figure out what the issue was. When we saw what it was the Democrat, it was exactly off the amount of Democrats that had been cast in that precinct. We ran the report matched the tapes, so we continued on.
You might explain what you mean by match the tapes.
Well, actually, let's go back a little bit further. For everyone here, I don't think, but could you explain how the precincts and everything comes in to us from the precincts, and then you,
After the
Put together.
After the precincts close at 7:30, someone from each precinct brings us their card from their machine and one of their tapes.
what are cards and tapes? Just for-
Our PCM cards that the machine reads. It's got all your
They're
tallies.
electronic, correct.
They're electronic. They're inside of those machines. It tallies the votes as the ballots are cast through the machine.
It
They,
should reflect what the tape says and the card should say.
when
the
you,
same thing.
when I upload that card, I print a report and one of us with me and a Democrat and a Republican board member matches that report to the tape.
So just to clarify, a tape is a written, printed out version. is that
Correct. A tape prints out of,
Electronic copy.
when
and
you
it's
close
printed
the
out.
polls overnight from that machine after the polls close, turn it off, close it, it tallies up all the votes that have been entered through that machine that day. They bring us one of those tapes, we match that tape to our report that prints in Unity.
And so you mentioned Unity. What is that? Does that differ from the tapes and the cards?
The
What's Unity?
You got
Unity
M100,
is our
you got-
software. It's our software. It reads our cards. It's where we upload our cards for our machines for our elections.
And Unity is what takes the results and sends them to the Board of Elections and to the media?
Is it not
It-
true that the M100 gives you the data, the votes
That-
cast?
Correct.
and you-
M100 gives
and you
me the
take-
data.
you
It's
take that
entered into
disc,
Unity.
take-
It's uploaded onto a disk, then it's uploaded to the state.
You take that disk, put it into the Unity system, and we always compare those to make sure it's the same. And then the Unity system is the actual transmittal device that
Yes,
goes
sir.
to the state board.
Yes, sir.
Then when it hits the state board, it shows up on the screen.
We check it again.
We also sit there and go, those are correct.
Correct,
So it's very
Is that the process?
correct.
So all the precincts come together, you're uploaded, and Unity tabulates and transmits.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it is also true that the Board of Elections meets on Tuesdays, about 4 different Tuesdays leading up to an election, and we look at absentee ballots and we feed those in to an M100 that tabulates the absentees. Sometimes we have 10 that came in that week, sometimes we have 40. We've never had some huge number, except we had a pretty big number in
2020.
the
In
last
2020 we
election.
did,
So
yes.
that's how absentee votes are done. And we meet as a board to go through those, and Melanie and her staff have already looked at them, and we look at them again to make sure they're valid. And so I wanted to make that clear.
So once, if I'm to continue this discussion. So at the point where you've got this report in Unity, and you notice that, okay, the Republican ballots are correct, the Democratic ballots are correct, but then they've added another set, which doubled the Democrats. Tell us what happened. I happened to be there, but tell these guys what happened.
Well, we went ahead with our election and uploaded because our tapes were correct, matched to our cards, which matched to our reports. The only thing that was off election nights was the total ballots cast.
Is it correct to say that at that point, we looked at the tapes,
Added
added
them all
up
up,
all the ballots,
and it added up to,
pencil
The-
and,
it
kind of
mattered,
thing.
it added up to the
And we
amount
got
of
the correct number,
Democrats.
but it
Yes,
wasn't what that report was
Correct,
showing.
correct.
But the votes were correct.
correct,
But the ballot number was still off.
correct,
So,
correct.
and a couple of us were confused, myself included.
Myself included.
And then what happened?
Monday, John Nose called me, and
Wait a minute, that night, what happened? Did you, or did you not notify the state board that we're confused, we got this number here that doesn't look right?
that night, Gary spoke with someone. We've had this, Gary Talent, we've had this before with the ballots cast. We had a race on the ballot that was vote for 2. And that's what we were assuming that's what that was. The extra ballots cast was the vote for 2 instead of the vote for 1.
Again, we kind of confused, as Mr. Cook mentioned.
Correct.
Correctly, might have confused votes and ballots. which-
Correct.
yeah. But we knew the
It-
votes were correct.
It should
we
not
knew the
say,
ballots weren't.
it should not say ballots cast. It should not say total ballots cast.
It
It
should.
should say total votes cast is what it should say.
Yeah. Okay,
And that's where it gets confusing.
so you've notified the state and talked to them. Then,
Then on Monday, and I didn't, after Mr. Cook contacted Gary, I think he talked to Gary. I didn't speak to him directly the
Him,
first
Mr.
couple of days.
Mr. Cook or Mr.
Mr.
Tell?
Mr. Cook he said he tried to contact the office and the numbers were off. I didn't contact you personally because we were trying to figure out the issue. And the numbers that you were putting out there was no number that we could find anywhere. I still haven't found the number that you put out there.
What were the correct numbers?
On election night, it reported 9844 as a total ballots cast. The real number is 8613, which is a difference of 1,231.
And the 8613, if we took each of the tapes from each of the precincts and the one-stops and the absentees, and we added up all those ballots,
I have done so, sir.
from
and
the
they,
tapes.
Yes,
because I know we did
they
this.
add up to that number.
They add up to 8613.
Yes, sir.
Not whatever the other,
Yes,
9844
sir.
or whatever the other number was.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
John Nose called me on Monday of last week and said that he had found a problem in another county.
I'm sorry, let me stop you. Tell us who Mr. Nose is.
Mr. Nose is he's from the State Board of Elections. He goes around to several of our counties. He's our go-to person. Instead of someone from Raleigh, that he's our local person that helps
He's the
us.
regional state board of
Yes, he
elections
is.
person for the
Yes, sir.
17 counties in the west.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He contacted me on Monday and said that he was on his way to another county, that they had found an issue, that the Unity was doubling their Democrat ballots on election night. That they were trying to reconcile, she couldn't reconcile, couldn't figure out what the problem was, finally figured out that it was placing the number of Democrat ballots that you had into another block, I think is the short term.
And
for
he'll
it.
explain that to us in a moment.
He
I'm
will
sure.
explain it a lot better than I can. So he came over, we fixed the issue, we uploaded everything again and came to the correct amount that
Fixing
we
the
were
issue,
supposed to
you mean
have.
He entered into the Unity
We-
computer the correct coding.
Correct,
And
It
then you
was-
read the reports and came up with the 8613, the
Correct.
same number that you
Correct.
got from adding up the
election night,
tapes.
yes, sir.
Okay.
It was an error in the coding, it wasn't, and that's why I didn't get back to you also. We were trying to investigate and find out what this was. I couldn't find that out in 30 minutes or a day. And then you have a certain time that you have to canvass and stuff has to be given to the state board. I had board meetings and we're still trying to find out all this stuff and get it fixed before I gave you an answer. I wasn't putting you off or I wasn't trying to hide anything. I was trying to get the correct information before I give it out to
Director.
anyone.
Yes, you did. When was the soonest that you actually were able to ascertain the nature of the error?
Monday evening.
Monday following the election.
Yes.
So
Okay.
about 6 days or so later.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
any other questions for Melanie
Well,
Tebow?
I'm wondering, I'm not sure quite how to phrase this. Have you and your staff kind of discussed the concerns that Mr. Cook has raised about how could we as, not just the Board of Elections, but the Elections Office, be more transparent in terms of acknowledging that we're working on some issues before it gets 5 or 6 or 7 days later?
Well, this is true. We probably should have said something. I probably should have too, but it was what to say and where to say it to. You know, and I answer to you guys. I can't just make a decision on my own and put something out there. I always talk to you before I put anything, out there or say anything.
But if you had been asked point blank, why is there a discrepancy, would you have been able to
No,
give
sir.
an answer
No, sir.
until Monday?
About the
Monday.
only thing you could have
Yeah.
said is, we don't know, but we're investigating. Is that
Correct.
about correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Melanie?
Anything else you need to add?
Oh, do you have some reports you want to enter into evidence?
Oh, yeah.
I have the ones that we had from election night with the numbers,
This is the one that
with the
had the correct ballot count.
9844. And then the numbers were redone. And the only thing that changed was the total ballots cast number
So one was the original report with the incorrect coding, and
that
this
we
one is
did
the
on
one with
election night. Yes,
the
sir.
correct coding.
All of the votes that were for the candidates on that night are the same as what they were on Monday after we fixed the
The
issue.
only difference between the two reports is the number of ballots cast,
Yes,
not the
sir.
vote tally.
Yes, sir.
And would you, perhaps the chair would read the total number of ballots from the correct report?
And the corrected report
8613.
is that total ballots cast is 8,613, Democrat ballots 1,231, Republican 7,382.
And see, the difference that we were off, and that's why I couldn't figure out the number that you were coming up with. The difference we were off was 1231, which is exactly the number of Democrat ballots.
Oh, and that
So
we
the
were
prior number was, again, just for the records, 9,844.
Yes, sir.
The new number was 8,613.
Yes.
The delta or the differential being 1,231.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
which is odd, but which it was. Okay. Let's go to the next one. What do you think?
All right, thank you, Tebow. As Melanie referred to, and as several people have, Mr. John Notes represents our State Board of Elections. He's out of Asheville, so he's local, and he gives a great explanation, or did for us on Friday, a canvas of what happened. Mr. Notes, would you come up and be sworn in or affirmed? Heather?
Mr. Nose, if you'll raise your right hand and raise your left, please. Thank you. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the Macon County Board of Elections Board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Noce, real quick, and this, because this is for the record, I'm not trying to be redundant, but could you give us your full name, please, sir?
Yes, sure. It's John Noce, Noce. It's a little bit tricky. It's Italian. It's supposed to be Noce, but it got gringoed over the years. So,
Mr. Noce, what is your current position?
so my official title is Security and Support Technician for District 1. I also have 5 counties in District 3 because we had someone retire. So all in all, I have 17 counties that I'm over, and that will explain some of the delay.
Which includes Macon, of course.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And how long have you had this position?
So I have been with the state for 2 years and a month. May 4th of 2020 is when I began. Prior to that, I was 8 years with Buncombe County as their absentee and poll worker recruiter and trainer. And so I've been in elections for over 10 years.
Okay. And so you have background knowledge of, you've heard the testimony here today. and
Yes.
You're familiar with the situation that happened.
Yes.
And could you
Yes.
maybe start at the beginning where you feel and just kind of give us your take of the situation and explain that for the record?
Sure, sure. So after election night, most counties spend Wednesday sort of cleaning up and getting ready to begin canvass so that they can finalize the results. Canvass, just for clarification, is a 10-day period in which the counties make sure that the votes are correct, to put it in a nutshell. They're going through provisional ballots, absentee ballots, they're going over election day and one stop, making sure that the totals are accurate. So on Friday, after the election, I went to Graham County to assist them in their reconciliation process. And we were sitting down with the tapes, and first precinct we picked up had, I think it was 107 Republican ballots. No, sorry, 104 Republican ballots, 3 Democratic ballots in this precinct for a total of 107. And that is what the tape said. But the Unity report was showing 110. And it didn't jump out at us that the difference was the Democrats at the time. So we thought, well, that's odd. Let's come back to this one and see what we can figure out. We went to the next precinct, same thing. Ballots cast for the Democrats, ballots cast for the Republicans. Total ballots cast matched the tape perfectly, added up correctly, but when we looked in Unity on those reports, it was off again. So I reported it to the state board. And over that weekend, Brooks Jones, who is not here today, but he's sort of the brains at the State Board of Elections, he actually started looking at the reports. He took Graham County's Unity coding and loaded it on a local machine in Raleigh. And he created some ballots, ran them through, and out came the results, and everything was the way it was expected. So the next step of his test was to run it through the Unity software, and it duplicated the exact same issue we were having in Graham. So over the weekend, he then found a solution to that issue. It turns out it was literally a checkbox in the coding where it was looking for a third ballot style. Usually in a primary, you'll have three ballot styles. You'll have the Democratic, Republican, and an unaffiliated ballot style in case there's any referendums or any sort of questions on the ballot that 17-year-old voters would not be allowed to vote for in the primary. So the software was looking for this third ballot style. Now, I will be the first to admit that even though I've got technician in my title, I am not a computer programmer by any stretch of the imagination. But the best way I can describe it is the software started at the top of the list with the Democratic ballots, said, okay, I've got a number. It went to the Republicans, okay, I got a number. Now I'm gonna get my third number, uh-oh, it's not there. Let me start at the top of the list until I get a third number again. That's the only way.
Just circle back
It's
is
the,
what you think.
it's the only way I can think to explain it. So the solution, to sum up, was simply to uncheck that box, take out the unaffiliated description, clear out the database, and re-upload all the results files, and everything worked flawlessly. Everything matched the tapes. So knowing that I had two other counties in this district, Swain and Macon, both on Unity still, I called them and asked, have you noticed anything odd? Swain County did not have the issue for whatever reason, but when I talked to Melanie, the director here in Macon, she said, yeah, actually, we noticed it election night, and we didn't know what to make of it. And I said, well, I'm here in Graham. I've just implemented the solution. It worked. I'm heading your way. And so that Monday after the election, we sat down at her Unity computer. We unchecked the checkbox, took out the description, cleared the database, reloaded up all the precincts and one-stop sites and absentee results, and now we were back in balance. Now, the problem with that, and thank you for everybody that was paying attention, because that means a lot to us. You see the ballot count go from, I think it was 9844, is that right?
44, that's correct.
Yeah, it went from 9844, it dropped down to 8613.
Correct.
Now, anybody paying attention would say, where the heck did 1,231 ballots go? I do not fault anybody for questioning that. So, but we knew the reason, and again, the point of Canvas is to make sure that the totals are correct, and that correction brought the numbers back in line with where they were supposed to be. I did speak to Mr. Cook about the issue, so thank you for reaching out. I hope I made you feel heard, and I hope I gave you a decent explanation. So, I'm not sure what else to add, but Graham County and Macon County both got corrected. I don't like to say fixed. We'll say corrected.
So I'm going to kind of ask just a couple of questions that I also asked on the Canvas study.
Sure.
And that's just for the folks out there, kind of clarify and give them some reassurance. Graham County is set up the same way as Macon as far as the type of voting machine and software that's uploaded to be used. Is that correct?
Correct. Both counties use the M100 tabulators at the precincts, and both counties have Unity as their reporting software.
And this is not a very common thing around the state, is it?
Not any longer. It used to be sort of the only game in town other than Ivotronics, which we are not allowed to have anymore. That's a
Right.
touchscreen. But most people have moved on to the more modern models, the DS200. So I have three of the, I think, 5 or 6 counties
5.
in North Carolina that still have M100s.
I believe it's
So
5.
so for the folks out there, basically, there's different voting machines in different counties, but Graham and Macon are the same.
Graham, Macon, and Swain are actually all three the same, yes.
Five in the state.
And so Graham had the exact same problem as Macon, and the solution implemented solved Graham and Macon exactly by the differential number being the number of Democrat votes.
That is correct.
And also down at the state level, I forgot his name there, your
Brooks.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
was able to duplicate this error perfectly, recreate it, and solve it there.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, he had the exact same issue by using Macon County's coding or Graham County's coding. He tried it on both. That's how he knew that Macon was involved as well. Was able to exactly duplicate the issue.
So it's fair to say, across the state, anyone with the same setup would have experienced the same issues with this particular.
Yes,
type of-
any Unity County with that checkbox selected would have the exact same issue.
Okay, so we've got a mathematical certainty on the error here.
Yes,
Is that correct? Okay, I
Yes.
just, because the folks out there, they don't have a clue
yes,
what a lot of this is, but they want to know that the number, if they go from one county to the other, when it's reduced, that it is nailed down to the correct exact number that it should be.
Yes.
That's what we want to reassure them today.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And if it's okay, I will add, Mr. Cook had brought up the point about a ballot for a voter. You know, if you got a ballot in the machine, you must have had a voter come in the door. And that is exactly what Canvas is for. It's to make sure that not only are the votes correct, but that you've got a ballot for each person that walked through the door. So, voter history and ballots cast have to be in line, otherwise there's an issue, so.
Now, you talked about the link between Unity and M100s, older machines or older system. Are you aware of any similar kinds of malfunctions or difficulties with some of the newer systems that most counties are using?
I have not encountered any issues as of yet. So,
And how long have some of the newer systems been on the market?
I want to say, my experience goes back to about 2013. That's when Buncombe County received the DS200. How long that machine had been available, I can't say.
So it's been at least 8-9 years.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the M100s, they've been around for a long time. They were, I think when Buncombe County had them, they were already 10 years old. So they're I kind of joke around, they're the finest in 1980s technology. So,
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I got a comment actually, because he and I have talked about this a little bit, and this concerns me a little bit. How could we, at the county level, have ever figured out what this issue was? I mean, we looked at this for at least 30 minutes that evening going, no clue. Is there any way we could have identified what caused that discrepancy in ballot count in the Unity?
I don't know that you would have figured it out that night, given the pressures of election night and all the results coming in and everybody clamoring for answers and results. Did I win? Did I lose? What's going on? So I don't know that you could have figured it out that night unless you were really good at auditing. Eventually, I think you would have realized the discrepancy kept being the number of Democratic ballots cast. I think that would have come out eventually on your own. But now that we are aware of it, in future primaries, we know to go in to the tabulator settings and look and verify that the correct number of ballot styles the software is looking for is what's listed in the program. So,
It seems like a very simple issue that probably shouldn't have occurred by whoever was coding the machines
yes.
or checking the machines.
Yeah, it was very simple.
That's just a statement.
Again, it was literally a checkbox
Yeah, I get it.
was selected in the coding, and a description was NON for non.
And there's no way in the world that somebody at the local level is going to go into that coding and go, well, that looked right.
Normally,
We're going to do that.
yeah, normally the county does not go digging into the Unity software looking for problems. You are strictly there burning the media that goes into the tabulators, and you are loading results. anytime you go fishing elsewhere, you're likely to,
Screw it up,
yes,
in a technical sense.
in a technical term, yes.
You said that you're not aware of any similar things happening with newer software systems. Do you happen to know if there are any protections built into some of the newer software systems that might make this kind of an issue impossible to happen?
I don't know about this issue. I know the newer software addresses other issues, like the electionware, which is the software that replaces Unity. That will not let you read in a set of results more than once. Unity, that is a possibility where you could put in a card and then put it in again, and it would possibly load it up. It's supposed to give you an error message and lock the card as soon as the results are uploaded, but there's nothing in the system that says, hey, this card has been read. So the newer software has a lot of checks and balances, if you will, to make sure that errors don't happen. You can't burn more than one media for a machine. If you do, it tells you, hey, you've already done this. Why are you running a second memory device for this machine? And it could be a simple answer like, oh, I've got it as a backup. So it fixes other issues. I don't know that there's anything that addresses this issue per se. One thing is during LNA testing. Prior to every election, we do logic and accuracy testing, which is called LNA for short. That's something that we can look closer at. Traditionally, historically, however you want to phrase it, when it comes to LNA testing, we use what's called the test deck. And so you have a preset determination of results. So the first candidate on the ballot gets 1 vote. The second candidate in that contest gets 2 votes. And so it creates a pattern. And so you feed the ballots, the test ballots through the machine, you run the results, and you just scan down the receipt or the results tape looking for that pattern. And if you've got that pattern, you're good. Knowing what we know now, we know to look deeper and look to make sure that it is also recording the
So
ballots cast
The
correctly.
test is counting votes, really not ballots.
The test is counting votes, just to make sure that
And
that
that's
a
how
vote
that's
for
slipped
Joe
through.
Smith is a vote for Joe Smith.
Because we spend good money on that
Yes.
test
Yes.
process.
Yes, and I hope there wasn't a Joe Smith on the ballot. I didn't mean to, I tried to pick a generic name. But yes, so.
Any other questions for Mr. Nose? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, and at this point in the agenda, I was going to ask you if you had additional evidence to present, so.
I just have a question. Mr. Knowles just testified that, I'm sorry.
You're still under oath, sir.
Yes. He just testified that 2 out of the 3 counties had problems. Who does the coding? And why would one county not have the same problem that the other 2 did? That'd be my question.
Yeah, that's a valid question, yes and no. Well, he can answer that question.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I figured you were. An attorney.
We don't want to throw dirt at him, but we will.
I'm not sure who to address.
Please speak into the microphone.
Just speak to the mic and talk to us.
But the Unity software is from a company called Printelect. Printelect is a subsidiary of the larger company ES&S. If you think of it as ES&S is like Toyota, and Printelect is like Fred Anderson Toyota. That's a good way to think of it. So now, as far as the coding goes, why you would have a difference is each county has their own dedicated coder. And so it's possible that Swain and Graham and Macon had the same coder. Swain had a different one. And that would explain the attention to detail that caused this checkbox
So
to.
there's summa cum laude doing
Yes.
Swain's and
Yes.
not one doing ours.
Yes. Now, again, I'm making an assumption that they would have had
No,
the
that
same
makes
coder,
sense.
but typically the coders work in a geographic area. So it's a little odd that they wouldn't have had Swain. But when I was proofing ballots prior to the absentee period beginning, there were different coders listed for all the different counties that I was using, so it jumped around.
Totally makes
That helps.
sense.
It does, actually helps a lot.
All right. At this point, Mr. Cook, if you have no other evidence or questions to ask, what we will do is deliberate this. We'll just go right back in this room and talk about what we've heard, and we'll come back probably in not too long a time with a decision on the protest. So if you just excuse us for a minute, we'll be right back. And before we go, let me just say on behalf of the board, thank you very, very much. Thank you other candidates that came to listen to how this is done. And I always like to close a meeting with inviting all of you to become poll workers. We need poll workers, and it's a great day to get out and meet your neighbors and take part in the process that we all think is so, so important. So consider it.
You may want to mention that we're going to finish canvas.
Yes, on Friday, after Friday morning, when the protest was filed, we went through canvas up to a point, and we wanted to wait until this procedure was done. And so we will also be completing canvas today. At the completion of canvas, you do some other things like put in your provisionals and your absentees that came in a timely manner. And so that will be completed as well, and then we can move on to getting, the recount is Thursday, which is good, and we will do that, and then we'll get on with the business of the county. So
Get ready for the next one.
that's right. So we'll be right back.
If I can stand up. Back in order now?
Yes. We've returned from our deliberations. And considering the facts as presented, after discussion, we have concluded that pursuant to State Statute 163-182.10 D2C, should you want to read that, we have concluded that the protest should be dismissed because there's not substantial evidence of any violation, irregularity, or misconduct sufficient to cast doubt on the results of the election. And there will be a written order in those terms, and it'll be provided to the state board and to the public. We will reconvene downstairs for the remainder of canvass. Those are public meetings. We invite you to come if you'd like to see how that's handled. Our recount will be Thursday, I believe that's at 9 o'clock. And the machines will be set up and workers will continue
Where
the
would that be?
process of
Community
recounting.
building.
It's at the community
Community building.
building. Okay, at the community building where our local One Stop was held.
It'll be held in the gym. In the gym, we got the gym,
All right.
so we have more room.
Thank you again. Come anytime to see what we do and ask questions, and thank you.
And
Thank you.
volunteer.
And volunteer.
Yes, indeed.
And good luck to you elected officials. Thank you. This meeting's dismissed.